dragons. The mighty, eternal, enormous, and fear-striking reptilian beasts that speak in the ancient magical tongue that can render foes into pieces or set alight entire palaces. They have a natural affinity for magic that is almost synonymous with their biology. They have no lips for speaking and lack an aerodynamic frame, yet due to their magical nature, they can both talk to others and fly in the skies. It is these such creatures that the prophesied last Dragonborn is tasked with defeating and slaying. But once such a hero has slain the beast, what of its enormous corpse? Well, why not take its natural armor, its scales, and make it into your own suit of armor? And while you're at it, why not take the bones? It seems that all over Tamriel and beyond, the people of Mundus find creative ways to create armors and weapons out of the most peculiar of materials, such as magical ice, amber, glass, and even crystallized god's blood. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Fudge Muppet. My name is Scott, and today, at your guys' request, we are looking into the powerful Dragon Bone and Dragon Scale armors. Now, of course, there is no real-world precedence for the use of Dragon Scale or Dragon Bone in the creation of historical weapons and armor. Reason being that our real world is missing a fairly key component, a certain giant, flying, fire-breathing reptilian. However, there has been time and time again the mention of dragons in real-world mythologies from many different cultures. I'm sure at some point a few of them conceptualized the idea of armor or weapons made from their corpses. Regardless, let's move on to the nitty-gritty, how the stuff actually works. Scales and bones perform very different functions in a body. Bones for the structure of the animal and scales for the protection. So let's first analyze the use of dragon scales in armor, and then we'll have a look at these dragon bones. You may be thinking that Skyrim is the only game to feature dragon scale armor, which is very reasonable if you haven't played some of the earlier titles, considering that it is said dragons are returning for the first time in thousands of years. Now, before I move on further, I will just clear up this misconception. Dragons have been around all throughout history, just not in the same abundance that they were during the earlier moments of history, like in the Merethic era. In fact, less than 1,000 years ago, Tiber Septim employed the red dragon Naphalalagus to help him in his conquest of Tamriel. Or even in more recent history, during the events of Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall, the renowned mystic Nulfaga, queen mother of King Lysandus, had a dragon familiar named Skakmat. But dragons were few enough that people would commonly believe that they were gone. It's not like the mortals of Tamriel have internet to share information instantaneously over thousands of miles. Also consider that by the time of Skyrim, the 201st year of the Fourth Era, it has been 200 years since the Oblivion Crisis. When looking back in history, you can easily go, oh yeah, 200 years, no time at all, but consider that 1970 was nearly 50 years ago, or consider that long past events like World War II and the Vietnam War all happened in the last 100 years. If you're a 20-year-old in the game Skyrim, you would be born after the end of the Great War, 180 years after the end of the Septim Dynasty, and around 600 years since Tiber Septim conquered Tamriel with the help of a dragon, which everyone doesn't necessarily know about. So you can understand why people have zero idea when it comes to dragons. Anyways, back to Dragon Scale itself. In the Elder Scrolls III Morrowind, which is set close to the end of the Third Era, there existed an Imperial armor type called Imperial Dragon Scale. Straight away, you may recoil and go, how the hell do they have dragon scales? Where are all the dragons? Shouldn't that be super expensive and rare? Is it ancient armor? Well, it could, emphasis on could, be real dragon scales. However, this is very, very unlikely. The truth about the Dragon Scale of Morrowind requires a little bit more information from the Pocket Guide to the Empire First Edition. Listen to this sentence talking about the area surrounding the Imperial City. The river mouth is tainted red from the tinmy soil of the shore, and river dragons rust their hides in its water. In the context of this book, the line is just sort of uttered as a small detail, hardly the focus that actual dragons living in the river would deserve. Why is this? Well, these are not dragons in the sense of flying eternal magical dragons. These are likely wingless dragons, like a Komodo dragon in real life. Essentially, giant lizards. These creatures did not appear in Oblivion, perhaps they were hiding, or perhaps Bethesda didn't care to put them in, but in the time of Morrowind, this explains why you can buy and wear an Imperial Dragonscale helm, cuirass, or tower shield. They make the Imperial Dragonscale from the hides of these giant river lizards, aka river dragons. It is decent stuff, but it is nowhere near the power of Dragonscale in Skyrim, which exceeds even glass armor in protection. The scales being from the river dragons explains why its protection and value is lower comparatively to actual Dragonscale armor of Skyrim. If we head on over to Skyrim in the 4th era when dragons are about doing their thing, we can hunt down some of these powerful beasts and harvest their scales, creating armor, boots, helmets, gauntlets, and a shield from this stern stuff. It is the best light armor in the game, and Dragonscale as a concept makes a good amount of sense. Dragon scales exist on the dragon to protect itself from damage, and especially considering that they are magical in nature, it is likely dragon scales are far stronger than the scales of a typical scaly creature, so why not coat yourself in this powerful protection? And that question leads to the use of dragon scale armor as the answer. But what about dragon bone? Bones are tough stuff, but all you have to do is watch an axe lop off someone's arm in one clean strike to have all your confidence in the material as armor sapped immediately. That is why the Dunmer of Morrowind crush the bone and bind it into a form with resin, making it stronger. The other pain in the butt with bone is that it is organic, meaning that it grows into its form while it is part of a living creature rather than being shaped like metal, meaning that if it breaks, repairing it is unlikely. But all we have to do is remember that once again, this is the Elder Scrolls universe and that dragons already use magic to defy physics, allowing them to fly with their immense weight and also being able to speak with their lack of lips. So why should their bones not have powerful properties, making them harder to break, perhaps as hard as any other metal? This is likely the case with dragon bones specifically. In the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, dragons have returned and they are everywhere, meaning that you, as the Dragonborn heroic Dragonslayer, can learn to craft not only armor, but also weapons from the carcass of your kill. While Dragonscale is the most powerful light armor, Dragonplate, made of dragon bones, ties with Stalrim for the second most powerful heavy armor, being beat out by the treasured Daedric armor. However, the Dragonbone weapons are the highest quality weapons in the entire game. Now, if anything, the Dragonbone weapons make a lot more sense and would be easier to craft than Dragonbone armor. The problem with making bone armor is the sizing and ensuring that the right size bones can be fitted together properly. Creating Dragonplate would also have to be a very precise process. Look at the Dragonplate shield, for example. It looks as if certain bones have been cracked into the exact right shape to be able to be nailed together. Metal can be melted and reformed at will, but if you were to crack bone the wrong way, you've buggered it and would likely need a whole new bone. If you were working with tiny chunks of bone being plated together in a scale-like pattern, it could be easier to work with, but having to crack the exact right-sized chunks into place would be very, very difficult a task. As for the weapons though, you can see how a dragon dagger and swords could be bone carved down into a sharp blade. Dragonbone arrows could have teeth or tiny sharp bits of bone as the arrowheads. The Dragonbone bow makes enough sense. Real life bows have been made of bone or horns throughout history. The mace looks like dragon teeth fitted onto the haft. The axes look like carved bone once again. And the hilariously Flintstones-esque Warhammer looks like it's just a straight up bone on the end of a helmet. handle. These weapons are more believable because they are either bones unaltered and fitted onto a weapon handle, or they're a piece of bone that is carved down into a sharp piece you want. But still, working with bone in this manner is still far more difficult than it would be worth, especially when you have access to metal. However, the only conclusion that I can come to about Dragonbone is that it must have some extra powerful properties unique to it versus other bones, or it would not have the protection value it does, considering that normal bone is not that strong. In fact, Dragonbone armor has actually appeared in a previous Elder Scrolls game as well. Yep, Morrowind. In Morrowind, you can find the item called a Dragonbone Cuirass with a 100% resist fire enchantment. If you were to read the book Tamrielic Lore by Yegrum Bagan, the last living Dwemer, you would find a description of the item. The Cuirass is one of the greatest artifacts any collector or hero could own. It is constructed of real dragonbone and was enchanted by the first Imperial battle mage, Zurin Arctus, in the early years of the Third Era. It is a truly exquisite piece of work, and many have sought to possess it. The properties of the cuirass allow the wearer to be resistant to fire and to damage an enemy with a blast of fire. Little is known about the involvement of Zurin Arctus with the enchantment of the cuirass, but an old tale speaks of a debt that he owed to a travelling warrior. Like the warrior, the Dragonbone male never stays put for long. So before the abundance of dragons in the 201st year of the 4th era, Dragonbone armor would have been an exceptionally rare and coveted item, and it likely will become a still rare and coveted armor type, but slightly more available, due to the dragon corpses lying around the land in the Dragonborn's wake. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is Dragonbone and Dragon Scale armor. I hope this helped you understand it a little bit better and also explain the existence of Dragon Scale armor in Morrowind. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I really do love doing this series, and it seems like you guys enjoy it too, so give the video a like, subscribe for more armor videos, and comment down below which armor vids that you would like to see next. My name is Scott from Fudge Muppet. Thanks again, and I'll be back to nerd out with you again next time.